I found out my wife was cheating on me after we'd been married for 17 years. Instead of getting caught up in her struggles, I focused on taking care of myself. I feel really sad right now, and I need to share something that's been bothering me all day. I haven't been able to talk to anyone about it, so I came here for support. I've been married to my wife for 16 and a half years, and we've known each other for 21 years. We've had good times and bad times. When I first met her, I thought she was the nicest person ever, and I even told her she'd be my wife soon after meeting her. We have 2 kids who mean everything to me. But after our second child, things changed. My wife became distant, sad, and not like herself. I thought she might be dealing with depression, but she didn't want to talk about it or get help. She suggested couples therapy, but money was tight because of the recession. I was working multiple jobs and running a side business just to make ends meet. I couldn't afford therapy on top of everything, especially when she wouldn't open up about what was bothering her. She had good days and bad days, sometimes being really nice and other times being mean and disrespectful. When we got back on track financially, I pleaded with my wife to go to counseling with me. Eventually she agreed, but it seemed like she didn't enjoy it. We saw a therapist, but my wife might have expected the therapist to blame me and tell me to do better, which didn't happen. The therapist also couldn't work with my wife's vague answers like, "I don't know." So my wife mentioned needing more help with household chores, which I gladly took on in 2015. Since then, I've been juggling 3 jobs, doing house chores like vacuuming, dishes, laundry, trash, and keeping things tidy. Things improved for a while, but then my wife's mood changed again. She started snapping at our daughter often. I had to have a serious talk with her, assuring her that I wouldn't give up on our marriage but couldn't tolerate her mistreating our daughter because of her own issues. I told her if she wanted a divorce, we could go that route. The next day, she said she wanted to try to make things better. For a few years, everything was okay. She even got prescribed antidepressants and seemed to be doing better. However, by 2020, she reverted to being mean and disrespectful, even worse than before. Her words and expressions showed disdain and disgust, which deeply hurt me. Our sex life was usually great, and we both enjoyed it, but when my wife was in her moods, she would withhold intimacy. Despite working as a bartender with plenty of tempting offers, I never cheated. My sister even assumed I had because she knew my wife wasn't being affectionate for a while, but I assured her I was faithful. Now here we are. After a wedding last month, we stayed at a hotel, and I hoped for some intimacy, but my wife bluntly said she didn't want me and suggested divorce. We agreed to wait until after the holidays for the sake of our kids. I cried for hours that night, thinking it would be the most painful experience. Then something strange happened recently. A week ago, my wife was supposed to be home after a party for our daughter's softball team, but she stayed out. I checked our Life 360 app and saw she was at an Applebee's. It seemed odd since they close early, but I thought she went for a drink with a friend from the party. However, when I asked her, she didn't mention Applebee's, which raised my suspicion. 2 days later, she suddenly said she needed to put a password on her phone for work emails, which made me even more suspicious. Today, my wife's mom asked if I could help her husband move a rug, so I went over to lend a hand. After finishing, I checked the Life 360 app to see if my wife had left work. When I saw she had, I decided to test something. My wife often talks on the phone while driving, so I called her. She was brief and said she had to go because she was talking to her mom, who was actually right in front of me. It seemed strange, but I went home. When my wife arrived, I casually asked about her mom. As she talked about her, I mentioned that I had seen her earlier that day. She denied it and asked where I saw her. I calmly said, "At her house when I called you." Her expression changed, and she tried to make excuses but eventually admitted she had been seeing someone for a few months, even before we decided to divorce. I was shocked and hurt. 10 minutes later, she acted like nothing happened. I'm not sure if she did it to avoid alarming the kids or because she doesn't care about hurting me, but I suspect it's the latter. I couldn't talk to anyone about it because we're keeping our decision to divorce a secret, so nobody accidentally tells my kids. We had plans to visit a Christmas village tonight, so we were out late. My kids noticed something was wrong with me, but they just thought I was in a bad mood. My son even said, "You sound hurt." I don't know what to do. The idea of divorce was already stressful, and I've lost 20 pounds in the past month without trying, just thinking about how to handle everything without losing my home. I've spent years paying off debts, and now I'll owe my wife money for the house. It's going to be tough, but I think I can manage. I was getting ready mentally for the divorce when this betrayal hit me hard. In the past month, my wife has hurt me more than I thought possible. She's changed so much from the woman I married. I don't even know what to do. I know telling my daughter we're splitting up will break her heart, but I'm not sure if I should tell her about this betrayal because I don't want her to hate her mom. I feel lost, confused, incredibly stressed, and heartbroken. My wife seems indifferent to it all. Thank you for listening. I'm not sure if this is allowed or too personal, but typing it out has been therapeutic, even with tears streaming down my face. Thank you all. It's been 3 months since my last update, and things have been quite a journey. Sorry for the long post. I received a lot of advice on my previous post. You can check my submission history for the original story, but I ultimately decided to trust my instincts on how to move forward, and it's going okay. We're not done yet, of course, since it's only been a few months. About a week after my last post, I discovered the guy's name when I saw my wife sending a Facebook message on her computer. It seems that's their main way of communicating, probably because he's married with 3 kids. He's also a doctor and wealthy, which hit me hard as someone working multiple jobs just to get by. On Christmas, I discovered that my wife had already informed her entire family, along with my sister and my cousin's wives, that we were getting divorced. Meanwhile, I hadn't told anyone yet out of fear that it might reach my kids before the holidays ended. Her mom was upset, thinking it was a huge mistake. The same reaction came from my sister and her best friend. However, my wife seemed indifferent to their concerns and conveniently left out the part about her cheating. I couldn't discuss this with her mom during Christmas because she was already emotional, and I didn't want to upset my kids, so I arranged to talk to her a few days later. The next day, my wife and I had a serious conversation. I told her that I didn't want her to see the other guy until our divorce was finalized. It felt disrespectful, and if she wanted to be with him, she should get a divorce first. She agreed. We also discussed how to divide things up fairly. I think we reached a reasonable agreement: no alimony, no child support, equal custody of our kids. We both contribute to clothing for the kids, and everything else is split equally. I'm keeping the house and paying her $43,000 in equity. In the end, she walked away with about $40,000. She also owes her dad $110,000, has a great credit score, and no debt, all thanks to me. When I finally spoke with her mom, I found out that when she knew we were going to talk, my wife came clean about her affair. Initially, she lied to her mom about cheating, but then confessed. My mother-in-law was angry and gave my wife a piece of her mind. Then she cried to me, worried that I might cut her out of my life. I assured her that wouldn't happen. In mid-January, I've lost 40 pounds due to stress and hitting the gym daily. Now we have to break the news to my kids. I told my wife I wouldn't lie to them, but I also wouldn't expose her unless they asked directly. I suggested steering the conversation away if possible. She agreed. But I knew my daughter wouldn't buy it. She's like a younger version of me and can spot deception easily. And that's exactly what happened. Before we could say anything, she asked if we were getting divorced. When we sat them down, my wife confirmed it, and my kids broke down, crying. Seeing them cry made me cry too. Then my wife made a mistake. She said, "We both want this," and my daughter exploded. She yelled that it was nonsense, that I didn't want this, and pointed out how upset I was. She demanded to know if my wife was cheating on me. My wife tried to dodge the question, but my daughter persisted until she admitted it. After that, my daughter became like a detective, listing every suspicious thing and getting my wife to confess more in 3 minutes than I did in a month. Afterwards, I had separate talks with my kids. My 12-year-old son needed reassurance that things wouldn't change too much and that everything would be okay. But I could tell he was worried about what would happen when everything was finalized. My daughter, on the other hand, was more concerned about my feelings. She cried because she saw how much I was hurting. I comforted her and promised to take care of things. Then she asked me for a promise, something I've never broken with my kids. She asked me to promise that if, after everything, my wife lost her new place and needed a place to stay temporarily, I would let her stay with us. Despite everything going on, my daughter thought of her mom's well-being. I couldn't refuse her request. She also spoke to her mom, asking her to promise to stop talking to the other guy. Unfortunately, my wife broke that promise after just 2 weeks. She started sneaking around to see him, even though she agreed not to. We had a big argument, and she agreed again to stop seeing him, although she still talks to him. Apparently, she has developed feelings for him now. But my daughter is sharp. She'll figure out that my wife broke that promise eventually. I don't feel the need to tell her right now. I'm working on refinancing my house, and my wife is searching for her own place with the help of her wealthy aunt. I've also learned everything about the guy she's involved with, but I've decided not to tell his wife. It's a bit selfish, but here's why. If I expose their affair, they might get divorced, and then my wife would have a new relationship with a rich guy waiting for her. He'd take her on fancy dates, vacations, and help with her expenses, while I struggle. I want her to feel the consequences of her actions. If she continues to see him after leaving, they won't have the luxury of going on public dates. They'll have to meet secretly at her place, and he won't risk giving her money to avoid suspicion from his wife. If he decides to leave his family for her, that's on him. I won't do his dirty work. That's what happened with her wealthy aunt. She got involved with a married man, and when his wife found out and left, she moved in with him and became wealthy. It might happen with my wife, but I won't support that outcome. Thanks for reading. I still find this subreddit helpful and therapeutic. Please be kind, as every situation is different. Update: it's been 16 months since I found out about the cheating. The divorce was finalized in August. I kept my promise to my kids to minimize changes in their lives. My wife tried to find a new home while still living with us, but got outbid 16 times. I found a house near mine that my wife loved. I talked to the owner, who let her buy it without any competition. This way, my kids are always close by. The divorce terms were favorable for me: no alimony, no child support, equal custody. I kept the house, and she got her share of equity. I managed to refinance before interest rates rose. In the following months, I focused on making my home comfortable for my kids and me, rearranging things, and staying positive. I stayed active at the gym and kept working hard. It's been a good period. I've stayed friendly with my ex, which has helped my kids adjust. She even joined us for Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve. Some people think I'm being too nice, but I let go of bitterness for the sake of my kids' happiness during the holidays. Financially, I'm doing well, though I think she might be struggling since budgeting isn't her strong suit. We share expenses for everything the kids need, except food and clothes. But I end up paying more money than I should, which is okay with me because I know it's for my kids. In December, I met a wonderful, beautiful woman. She lives about an hour away and is divorced with 2 kids. Because of her custody schedule, we can only see each other a few times a month. But she's amazing and makes me really happy. I don't know much about my ex's dating life. I'm not sure if she's still seeing the guy she cheated with or not. I know she's been with a few other people, but I don't ask about it. I did hear that one night, about 3 weeks after she moved out, she went out with a guy and got attacked by 4 girls and beaten up. Honestly, I laughed when I heard that. As for the guy she cheated with, we have some mutual friends. One couple who are friends with him saw him at an event with his family. They started talking loudly about how I found out my wife was cheating on me and mentioned my name, saying I knew who the guy was but hadn't done anything yet. Then they joked, saying things like, if he decides to go after the guy, they won't find his body for 50 years, and laughed while watching him get nervous without letting on that they knew it was him. I don't think my ex ever told him I knew about the affair, so it was probably a shock for him. I'm sure I'll run into him eventually. I'm not sure what will happen, but I'm not actively looking for a confrontation. So basically, 16 months after finding out about the affair, I've got a new girlfriend, a great relationship with my kids, a happy work life, I'm in great shape physically, and doing well financially. I don't think it could have turned out better for me. If anyone going through a similar situation needs advice, here's what I'd say. Stay positive. Don't let anger and negative feelings take over your life. If you don't have much money, try to work out a deal with your spouse without involving lawyers. This way, you'll have some money to keep. If you have kids, try to keep things friendly with your spouse. I know it's hard, but you're doing it for your kids, not for your spouse. Exercising is a great way to relieve stress. Join a gym and start working out. It helps both your mental and physical health. Remember, every situation is different. Find what works best for you. When your spouse is gone, remember they are gone. They aren't coming back to you, and even if they do, it's probably not good for you. The trust is gone forever, so move on and find someone who deserves you. If you don't meet people often, try a dating app like Bumble. They work. I know this update might not be as dramatic as some would like, but things really turned out well for me and my kids, and that's all I wanted. So I'm much happier now than I was when I first posted, and I think that's the goal here. Thanks for all the kind words and support. It helped a lot. Now on to the next story. #### story 2. I caught my GF doing this with her app at a friend's wedding, so I exposed her and now she's a wreck. My wife, 32, female, has always been my biggest supporter, especially when it comes to my DJing career. We actually met back in 2011 at a school event where I was just starting out as a DJ in our town. From the moment we started talking, we just clicked. We had so much in common, from our interests to our taste in music and favorite bands. At first, we decided to hang out as friends, but soon we realized there was something more between us, and we started dating. Fast forward to 2013, we got engaged, and to celebrate, we took a trip together. We often look back on that trip where we listened to the entire Third Eye Blind catalog and sang along to all the songs. That same year, we got married. Throughout our marriage, we developed a special tradition of trying to see our favorite band, Third Eye Blind, as often as possible. We made it a point to attend their concerts whenever they were on tour, and over the course of our 9-year marriage, we managed to catch them 9 times. It's been a fantastic journey filled with shared passions and great memories. Last night was supposed to be our 10th time seeing our favorite band. Can you believe it? We've been married for 10 years as well, and our anniversary is just around the corner in November. I had this amazing plan all set up for us. We'd go to the concert, stay at a nice hotel, and have a super romantic night together. And to top it all off, I got her a beautiful custom necklace made of gold with her name on it and her favorite lyrics engraved. I've been saving my entire salary for the past year just for this special gift, and I knew she would absolutely adore it. So on Friday night, the big day arrived, the day of the concert and our 10th anniversary celebration. When I got back home from work, I found my wife getting ready, looking as stunning as ever. I was all excited to give her the necklace and the concert tickets, so I went to my work laptop bag where I kept them. But then I noticed her phone on the table, and it had a notification buzzing. I couldn't resist my curiosity, so I tapped on the message. The text was from an unknown number, and it said, "How was today? I miss you so much. When can I see you again?" Man, it was such a shock for me, and my chest felt this weird heavy feeling when I saw that message on her phone. I couldn't help but scroll through their chat, and with every message I read, I got more and more disgusted with my wife. I mean, how could she do this to me? That was the only question running through my mind. The worst part was when she mentioned him needing condoms, and he replied to it with a picture of a pack of condoms in his car with the caption saying, "Already." It made me wonder if they even used any, but honestly, at this point, does it even matter? I didn't want to stay in the house a minute longer, so I grabbed my work bag, which had the concert tickets and the necklace I got her. I needed some space to process what was happening before I confronted her about it, so I hopped in the car and drove straight to the concert. I had spent a lot of money on those VIP tickets, so I figured I might as well make use of them. About 15 minutes into the drive, my wife called me, sounding surprised and annoyed at the same time. She asked where I was and what I was up to. Can you believe the audacity? She had to ask me that. I was so angry that I told her I was on my way to the show since she already had her fun private show in the afternoon. There was silence on the other end, but I was too furious to carry on the conversation, so I just hung up. I was still in shock and couldn't believe what I had just discovered. At that moment, I was feeling numb, like I didn't know what to feel. Then she called me back, and it was like she was going through the motions. She started crying and tried to explain that they were just friends and that nothing actually happened between them, but I couldn't take her excuses anymore. I felt like she never respected me or truly loved me the way I loved her. It all just spilled out, and I reminded her how I went all out to get her an expensive gift for our special anniversary. She got quiet, and then suddenly she acted like she was crying and asked what I got her. It felt like she was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her and forgiving her. I was done with her lies and drama at that point. I told her to leave me alone and be with whoever she wanted to be with. But she insisted that we talk about it like adults and wanted me to come back, as if I'm the childish one for having stormed out. I saw through her plan, though. She was going to act innocent, make me feel guilty, and then try to seduce me. And honestly, just the thought of it disgusted me. I never thought I'd feel that way about my wife and the idea of being intimate with her. It was all just too much. So I made it to the concert, and when I handed my ticket to the guy at the entrance, he looked at me and said, "There's two," meaning he needed to scan the other ticket too. I must have been in a daze or something because I just stared at him blankly and replied, "Yes, there's two," and then walked inside. It was like I was in some weird trance or hypnotized or something. Anyway, the show was incredible. I had a blast and really enjoyed myself. I even ended up making friends with some cool people in my row, and we all had a great time together singing along to the songs. But I have to admit, some of the lyrics hit me differently that night considering everything that was going on. During the concert, I felt so alive. I danced and screamed along with the crowd, and it was like a release for all the frustrations I was feeling. The loud rock music drowned out everything else, and it was just what I needed. When the concert ended, it was still pretty early, and I thought about sitting at the bar and having a drink, but the idea of talking to someone outside of the concert context just felt overwhelming. My mind kept going back to those texts and what I had discovered, and it was hard to shake off those thoughts. So after the concert, I headed to the hotel where I had made a reservation for my wife and me, but there I was, sleeping alone. When I woke up, my inbox was flooded with about 30 emails from her. It seemed like she had been up all night going through a roller coaster of emotions, guilt, shame, and even anger. Surprisingly, some of her emails were filled with anger towards me for going through her phone. It was surreal to read those, as if I was the one in the wrong. She pleaded and bargained, leaving voice messages expressing her surprise that I had gotten her an expensive gift, which she found out by going through my emails. She begged me to answer her calls and wanted us to talk things out, hoping we could salvage our anniversary night and make it memorable. That night turned out to be unforgettable, but not in the way I had imagined. It was when I finally saw the true colors of the person I had been married to. Even though it took me nearly 12 years to fully realize it, the worst part was when she sent me all the cards I had written for her over the years. Anniversary cards, birthday cards, Christmas cards. I'd always poured my heart into those cards, expressing my deep love for her. It was something I had never done for anyone else before, and she used to write such heartfelt cards for me too, although she hadn't done so in years. I think her intention was for me to read those cards and have my heart soften, to remember how much I loved her. She hoped that I would come to my senses, reach out to her, and that we would talk things through, leading to forgiveness and a better future together. But instead, reading those cards made me realize just how little she loved me. It was a painful realization that night, as heartbreaking as it was. It opened my eyes to who my wife truly was, despite us being together for nearly 12 years. I realized that I needed to come to terms with the situation and decide what was best for both of us moving forward.